Welcome to Showdown. I'm Mark Kaysen, and it is Tuesday, October 1st. That's my brother Leslie's birthday. But then again, who cares? Okay, so we're ready to go with 35 days until Donald Trump is deposited on the ash heap of history where he belongs with Joe McCarthy. The two of them can reminisce about their time in government. But in the meantime, we're on our way to a debate tonight, which undoubtedly could be just normal. It could be a normal debate. And when I say that, I think that Vance will have to behave himself because he'll be in the presence of adults. Obviously, this is not Donald. If it were Donald, different story altogether. The psychopath has no self-control, no ability to deal with reality, and he would blow himself away. But J.D. Vance knows the difference between Earth 1 and Earth 2, and I don't think that he wants to be completely humiliated by Earth 1. Now, the other side is, if he acts too normal, then he's got Trump to deal with tomorrow. But I don't think Trump can remove him. How could he? So I think at this point, tonight might be pretty normal. J.D. Vance will pretend to be a human being, and I think it could come across, just like I say, normal. Now, having said that, today has been nothing close to normal, or at least it's normal for the Donald Trump era, but certainly not normal for Earth 1 and politics in the United States of America, because Donald has just gone off crazy. And the man is nuts. We know he's sick. We know he's got serious problems. But the things he's saying at this point are even worse than what he has said before. Now, before I even bring up what he's saying, let me mention something about a court in Georgia, because this court in Georgia, it came up with a decision yesterday that I think is really important to listen to. Now, I understand everybody wants to talk about abortion, which I don't want to talk about. I have absolutely no interest in discussing abortion, because what I care about is women's health care. And that's the problem. It's not an issue of whether a woman should have an abortion or not, because I think everybody can say it would be best for women not to have abortions. That's not the question. Here's the question. Should women receive health care? And in fact, at this point in our history, the answer appears to be no. What it is in the heads of some of these very ill people, I can't tell you. But they are running around supporting many of the issues which lead to women bleeding out in cars, in bathrooms, even in the outside of doctors' offices, because the doctors won't treat them out of fear that the doctors will go to jail. Now, it's true that the women would go to jail too. I mean, that's part of this world that we live in, Earth 2. But I can tell you that the doctors fear that they will either go to jail or lose their ability to practice law, and therefore they're willing to allow women to die. And women are dying. Well, isn't that cute? So here we are, and the court in Georgia addressed this beautifully. And they said that women are not collectively owned public property in America. And that is the issue. Because there's no doubt that there's a desire on the part of some people, men, to own women and to push them toward death. Why? I can't tell you. What they think this does for them, I don't know. But I will say that this was the way the United States ran all the way back in 1776, 1887, when we were dealing, 1787, when we were dealing with, the inception of the Constitution. So when we were dealing with independence, it was independence not for women. And when we got to the Constitution, it was rights, but not for women, for white men with property. So if you're a white man out there without property, then you would be considered at the bottom of the totem pole too. But I say the bottom, but maybe not the total bottom, because the bottom was women. Black people didn't get on the totem pole at all because they weren't human, according to the United States of America, which, frankly, that's what a lot of these people would love to go back to also. Certainly Donald would. No doubt in my mind. But women couldn't sign a document without their husband's approval. And if you think we're not going back to close to that, well, you haven't been around Earth 2 very long. Now, the other side of the coin is we're not going to go to Earth 2 because Donald can't win an election. Not even with the insanity that he is throwing around today. And just, again, let me speak out that great sentence from the judge in the Superior Court in Georgia. This would be helpful for Donald and others to understand this sentence, that women are not collectively owned public property. They are not. I know some people would like it to be that way, and I'm sure Donald would, but it's not happening. So here we are, and we're looking at no question, a man, Donald, who is so out of touch with reality that he could say anything. And here's what he's saying. He's looking at the hurricane in southeast United States, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, all through there. And he is saying that Joe Biden refuses to discuss any aid with those states, that he will not give them any support, that he will not even talk to anybody, that people who live there are headed for desperation well beyond what they've already suffered because Joe Biden won't give them any FEMA aid, won't give them any money, won't give them any even interest, won't even give them the time of day, won't even talk to the governors on the telephone. Everything is out. Biden refuses. He has locked himself up somewhere. He won't answer the phone. He will not talk to these people. He doesn't care. Only problem is that the governors of all of these states say that it's a lie. And these are Republican governors. And they say it's not true. They have talked to Joe Biden. It's all been discussed. Joe Biden has given them every assurance that they will get money, that they will get government workers, that they will get every kind of support that the United States has available for people who suffer through these catastrophic storms. And this was a catastrophe for sure. And you've got the United States government doing what we do, stepping up and providing support for the people of the United States who are desperate, who have no power, who have nowhere to live, who are out of food, whose water is undrinkable. And the United States is already in action, bringing to these people everything they need in order to survive as they go through the process of trying to rebuild their lives with the help of the United States government. But Donald says it's not happening. They're not doing that at all. Donald says this is a refusal by Joe Biden to provide anything for these states because they are run by Republicans. You know that this is not true. And in fact, what's happened, and really this is why Joe Biden's not running, because actually he doesn't know what to do. And who would really? I mean, Kamala does know. She's very smart. Pretty funny, considering the fact that Donald says what he says about her mental deficiency. But the reality is she's smart. She knows how to speak to all of this. She knows exactly the direction to go, how far to push, what to say. Joe Biden, on the other hand, has a problem. And here's his problem. He is a human being, decent guy, and he can't understand how Donald can get away with this. How can Donald say these things? They're obviously not true. They're not even close to true. This isn't like shading the truth. This isn't like fudging some numbers. This is just lie. Lie, 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 lie. That's all. That's what Donald does. And when he does it, listen to what his people say. They're asked, are you upset about what Donald is doing here? Are you upset that he's lying? What do you think about the fact that he's lying? And they answer other questions. They will not answer the question. What do you think about Donald telling lies? They won't answer. I listened to several of them today. They will not even discuss it. They immediately go to another area. They talk about something completely different. And then the interviewer comes back and says, well, what about the question about Donald's lies? And then they go to something else. They will not talk about it. They won't even say, look, it's Trump. It's the way he is. They won't say that. Or they could say, you know, you don't understand. There is some truth in this. Not saying that. They could say, maybe Donald's mistaken. Not saying that. They're not saying anything. They're just going on and saying anything they want. La, 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 some other subject, absolutely not addressing what is happening here. Not at all. Donald lies, and his people, they just say something else, anything else, any other subject, but they will not address the lies. So here's a lie for you. Iran is hitting Israel with ballistic missiles. So Iran hits Israel with these missiles. Of course, the United States steps in with Israel and deflects virtually all of the missiles, everything. It's all pushed off, blocked. People in Israel are certainly frightened. They're locked up in shelters. 2 people got hurt because they were running and they tripped. Maybe, I think it was one, was hit by some shrapnel that fell out of the sky, and that person was just, again, minor injury. Of course, pretty scary injury, but minor. And then Donald's comment on all of this. He explains that none of this would have happened if he had been president. That because he's not, these things are occurring. That Joe Biden in office encourages this sort of thing from other countries, and Iran has no fear of any response from the United States or Israel or anybody else, because they know that Joe Biden is, not his word, my word, feckless, but Donald couldn't use that word because he wouldn't even know what he's talking about, which he doesn't know, but he does say things that he knows are untrue, like Iran wouldn't do it except for Joe Biden. You know how long they've been fighting over there? Forget that 2,000-year stuff. I mean, let's just go back to 1948. So since 1948, that's 76 years, the people in the Middle East, whether it be Iran, Hezbollah in Lebanon, or at one point, of course, it was led by Egypt. And then, of course, Saudi Arabia and Jordan were involved way back. You know, all these countries, they all did it. But one by one, countries figured out, surprised it took as long as it did, that you can't beat Israel. You can't. First, you can't do it because they have nuclear weapons, but everybody knows they're not going to use them. Secondly, they got a lot of power, and they will use the power, and they have done that. And these Arab countries who have attacked Israel have paid enormous prices for 76 years. Finally, Egypt saw that this was a no-win deal, and so they just said, fine, you're offering $1 billion a year? We'll take it. That's $40 billion the last 40 years. Pretty smart for the Egyptians, taking that money from the United States. And by the way, pretty smart of the United States to give them the money, because you know what it cost to fight against Egypt every 5 years or less? I can tell you right now, it would have cost an enormous sum of money, and people would have died. The United States used its head and stayed out of these wars by passing money around, by making deals with people like Saudi Arabia, like Jordan. It's obvious to some people that if you're going to die for no reason, maybe it's better to not die and find some kind of a concession that'll make it worth your while to just look the other way. And that is what the Middle East has done. It has consistently looked the other way in recent years and allowed Iran and Hezbollah to fight the battles, Hamas, of course, fight the battles against Israel, threaten to destroy Israel, you know, the river to the sea and all that stuff. It's all nonsense. Israel can stop anybody. Now, they have the power to stop everybody. There's no way that you want to mess with Israel because they can destroy you. Now, of course, many of these countries have come to the conclusion that Israel won't do it because the United States looks at them and says to Israel, you can't. You can't do it. You know, it's not a question of whether we're going to let you or not. It's a question of whether you can. You cannot. First of all, no one can win a nuclear war. And even though these other countries have no nuclear weapons, we have to keep in mind, Russia has them. China has them. So that's enough. You just don't need that war. So you just need to back off with the nuclear weapons. Now, there is an extent to which people won't go because they know those nuclear weapons will protect Israel and that Israel has the ability to launch them if they want to. But, you know, launching those weapons is suicide, and Israel is not suicidal. So people figure that they have basic safety in fighting with any Israeli force because there's only so far they can go. I mean, they can blow up your city, they can dump 2,000-pound bombs on you and so forth, but they just can't go to the ultimate weapon, and they won't. And it's good. They shouldn't. I mean, there's no way we want to get into this mess. Now, we could ask a question. Is Iran doing this hoping to harm Kamala Harris? I mean, that's possible. I mean, how can you get into their heads? You really can't. They may think that that will do it, especially in a close election, which I, again, believe very sincerely is not the case. This is not a close election. It is a conversation piece that brings up this idea of a close election, but I don't think it is. Now, I can't prove it. I don't have a poll. I have polls. You know, I have one poll that shows 7% of the black vote going for Donald Trump when he said 28. I have polls that show that women are 31% against Donald Trump, in favor of Kamala. Young people, 27% in favor of Kamala. I mean, giant numbers. And I've said all along, you know, if you've got women, if you've got blacks, and if you've got young people, it's probably the end. Because you're going to get people elsewhere all over the place, you know, here and there, and it's going to be enough. Because I think that you're probably looking at more than the 7 points that the latest polls are showing. You know, they show the Kamala is 7 points ahead of Donald. Now, here's the thing. Some people say that in order to win the Electoral College or to win it convincingly, in order to be sure that you probably need 6%. You might make it with 5%. We know that Hillary didn't make it with 2%. That was not enough. So somewhere around 2 to 5 is probably the number that you need to beat Republicans in the Electoral College, which largely occurs because of things like gerrymandering, which, you know, it's illegal manipulation of districts. But as long as the Supreme Court's willing to affirm it, well, that takes care of that. Now, I know we've got 90 locations around the country where you've got lawsuits and you've got various people on the ground placed there by Donald Trump in order to try to reverse the results of a failed election for Donald. They know where this is going. And let me also say, Donald Trump would not use the language he's using if he didn't think that it was desperation time. He knows that he has to do something. He knows that he is out of bullets. In fact, he's out of money. He's out of everything. He's certainly out of any kind of logic that would make a case for his presidency. You know, people are out here saying, well, his economy was good. And I do understand that there are people here who don't know the difference between what went on with Donald Trump and what's going on now. They just don't understand. If you don't know, you don't know. But the fact is that the economy is strong. The stock market, which, you know, it's gotten a couple of hiccups here, some pretty heavy selling today, and Apple Computer and Microsoft, two of the most valuable companies in the entire world. And that's not unusual. It's totally to be expected. I've been talking about it here on the air. I have to say it worries me because a protracted decline would definitely put some pressure on Kamala's candidacy. But it wouldn't be because of Kamala. It's nothing to do with her. You've had a bull market in which the narrowest participation has found the broadest indexes going sideways for 5 years, while the Dow and the S&P has rocketed straight up. They have. They've been unstoppable. 40,000 plus on the Dow, the S&P expanding every day, with Microsoft and Apple leading the way previously, but now it's sort of reversed, and you got a lot of pressure on these stocks. And if it gets going with some momentum, well, you're going to have some people saying that Kamala did it. But it's foolishness, because no president has that power. The Federal Reserve doesn't have that power. No one's got it. The markets are too big. You can't control long-term interest rates. You can't control the gold market. You can't control currency markets. None of these. No one does it. This is not something that's caused by an individual or even a group of individuals. It's something that's caused by mass psychology. And that is the danger that Kamala faces in the next 5 weeks. If the market were to reverse, there would absolutely be people, incorrectly, concluding that she has caused it. And so they would probably, out of fear, vote against her. Now, would that be enough? Probably not. Kamala is so far ahead right now that this is going to be tough to take from her, especially with only 5 weeks left. And it would probably take 2 or 3 weeks before people realized how difficult the situation in the market could be. Although I do have to say that a 10 to 15 or 20% crash could occur almost at any time. Almost. Not necessarily, but it almost could. And again, not because of economic conditions, although such a thing would probably influence economic conditions negatively. But the point is that as we get closer to the election, the only thing that could save Donald would be possibly a true crash. And, you know, the conditions are there for it. I've said this before. They are. It doesn't mean it'll happen now, It could be 2, 3, 6 months away, could be a year away, but it seems to be heading in that direction. Again, the basic essence of this is that you've had years of rising stock prices, which amounts to about 7 or 8 major companies leading the way up. They have become massive corporations, trillions of dollars worth of equity, and their position in these popular averages causes everything to go through the roof. And then there's 5,000 other stocks and more, really, and they just sort of hang out there, going nowhere, trending downward to some degree. Someday they'll be coming back with unbelievable power, and that'll be great. But first, you got to go through the downside of all of this, and there's just no other way around it. It's going to be that way at some point. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen now. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen in a week or a month. But it's getting close. It just is. It's how markets work. And the sad part is that our country understands so little about how markets do work. And that's a shame. But we do know that we had 500 days of an inverted yield curve. And I'm not going to go through the explanation of that again, but we did have that, and it's now reversing. And unfortunately, when it reverses, that is typically when economies go into recession. So, yeah, it's a problem. It definitely is. These things happen. How do you solve the problem? Well, you just go through the pain. And you have in place the kinds of protections that were put here by the Democratic Party with Franklin Roosevelt. Yeah. Franklin Roosevelt helped put together FDIC. Franklin Roosevelt put together Social Security. Franklin Roosevelt put together all of the systems that allow the Federal Reserve to come into a position of doing what they have to do. Now, I got a phone call here, and I'm going to answer it, and I hope that this is going to work. Mehdi, are you there? Okay, wait a second. Let me push a button and see if I can make this work. You think I can make it do it? Okay, well, here we go. I pushed the button. Are you there, Mehdi?
Hello.
Try it one more time. Are you there? Mehdi? Okay, hang on. It says connected. So let's try again. Well, yeah, I heard him too for a split second. But at the same time, I can actually call him. And I think I'm going to do that. And for a really good reason, too. Because Mehdi's from Iran. And he understands all of this better than all the people I know. And hang on, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Okay, almost there. Just about. And here, let's try that. Okay. Here we go. Mehdi? Hello? Well, that's not working. Okay. Yeah, that was crazy. Okay, so hang on. I'm very persistent, so let's see what we can do. Oh, this is so weird. Oh, what a shame. Hey, Mehdi, if you hear me, call back. Okay, let's see if he can do this. That'd be great if he can. Yeah, he really he knows this entire area so well. He knows he's got a deep understanding of what's going on there and why I can't dial out on this phone. You know, and it won't work on my other phone, that's for sure. But let's see here. Okay, I'm you know, I'm just a little stubborn. So hang on. Let's see what we can do. We're getting there. It's ringing.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mehdi, can you call me on that other number?
Yeah, let me tell you what happened to me.
No, wait. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Call me on the other number and we'll talk for a minute and then I'll talk to you in about a half hour after that.
What other number?
The one that you just called. 471-1968.
Mark, I don't want to go on radio right now.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
After what happened in Iran today?
I know, yeah, but I don't
Okay.
feel, by the way, I fell on my back.
Oh no.
Now,
No. Okay, listen. Let me stop you there. I'll call you in a half an hour. Okay. So that's unfortunate. Okay, we'll try that again another day. But I do assure you that when it comes to Iran, Mehdi really knows the story. So, okay. We will move on from there. But I will say that one thing before I hit the business side of this is that Jimmy Carter, 100 years old, and all he wants to end his entire life on this planet is the opportunity to cast his vote against Donald Trump. That's all he wants. He just wants one vote against Trump. That's it. Just one. He wants to do it, and he wants to, whatever comes, let it come. I mean, this guy's been in hospice. Look how long. Nothing stops him. Talk about a man who is clearly powerful. And it's so incredible because when we think back to Jimmy Carter as president, the last thing you would ever have said is Jimmy Carter a powerful man. But he has certainly been that. He has survived everything, every kind of cancer, you name it. And he just keeps on going. And he has only one goal: vote against Donald Trump. And, yesterday I had mentioned that this general, apparently it's McChrystal, General McChrystal, a highly regarded retired general who has come out in the last couple of days in support of Kamala Harris and said that, he would have never imagined getting in the middle of an election situation and telling somebody his opinion because he just didn't even think it was appropriate. As many of these retired military people feel, and especially these people at very high levels coming out of our military. And the one thing that they have to do, they feel, is warn the public against Donald Trump. And it's so interesting because the story. Oh, it's a hoax. Oh, they're just out to get Trump. It's just Trump delusion syndrome, derangement syndrome, whatever. But here's the thing. These people, like McChrystal, they're signing letters. They're telling everybody that they can find get Donald Trump out of the picture. And by the way, we'll come back to this in a second, but Greg has said, and then we'll talk to him in a minute. He says the market is down because OPEC is raising gas prices and the East Coast stock strike. Well, you know what? Not true. That's not it. That's not it. Yeah, now, okay. Now you say next week it'll be because of a full moon. Yes, and that's fine, Greg. So you're saying it's not because of any of that. And if that's what you're saying, then you're right. Because listen, Apple Computer was down $9 at one point today. That wasn't because of gas prices. It wasn't because of the dock strike. It wasn't because of any of it. It's because somebody was selling Apple and they were selling Microsoft. $10 down on Microsoft. What? No, there's no connection to any of this. This is all market-driven decision-making, regular psychology. And I think if you look at the pattern, it's a bit scary. It is. But it's not anything to do with Kamala Harris or Joe Biden and not even Donald Trump. None of it. None of it. Not Jay Powell. It's none of it. This is where this is headed. Now, it may not blow up in our faces here. It may be a month, it may be 6 months, or it might be now. It's coming. The point, though, is Donald will lie every inch of the way. It's just what he does. But what we're going to do, because this is what we do, he lies. What we do is go eat the best food for dinner that we can find on a Tuesday night, and that's at Wendy's. And that's at 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road, and that's in Chesterfield. And, of course, the food is the best. They've got wings. They've got smoked meat. They've got hamburgers and cheeseburgers and patty melts and pizza, really good. They've got great salads. They've got excellent drinks. And then after it's all done, then you can go back and eat the best food they've got. And that's the baby back ribs and the onion rings. But eat it all, every bit of it. What the heck? You know what Donald says? What have you got to lose? Well, no weight, but at any rate, you'll have a great dinner. You'll really enjoy your food. You'll have a great environment there. And then you better drive down the street to the JCCA and work out because you're going to need it. And then, by the way, you can go on to Defiance, $29.99 South Highway 94, and you will love the great food at Wendy's in Defiance because it's the same Wendy's food. It's all fantastic. Check them out soon, tonight if possible. Now, if you go for jewelry, that's at 4506 Hampton, and that's Jewels on Hampton. And you know they've got cases and cases and cases filled with jewelry and all really nice pieces that are sold at great prices. Al is the owner and his son AJ, and they guarantee, and I guarantee you, that you're all going to find that Al is just a great guy. You'll love him. And you'll love his story. You'll love his prices. You'll love the designs. If you want him to, he'll help you by designing more jewelry, or he'll take you through what he's got. Either way. And then, of course, how about those watches? He'll fix your watch. He really will. He knows what he's doing. They know. They're great. It is Jewels on Hampton. Buy and sell coins and jewelry. Excellent prices. Honest, terrific people. at 4506 Hampton. It's Jules on Hampton. Now, if you're looking for men's clothing, well, hey, here it is. Right here in front of you. Nice red tie with my suit. I guess it's a gray suit. I think it is. You know, I'm colorblind, so I couldn't even tell you. I know it's a white shirt. I can tell you that much. And I can tell you that the prices for all of this are great if you go to the St. Louis Suit Company in Clayton. Now, it's on the corner of Forsyth and Central, and they've got shoes, and they've got shirts, and they've got suits and overcoats. It's starting to get cooler in the mornings. Now, it already got cool one day, and then it sort of bounced back the other way. You know, it sort of alternates, but it's coming. We're almost there. Time for the overcoats. I've got mine out, and it's in operation. I used it to fend off all that rain the other day. In any case, you'll want yours, and you can get it at the St. Louis Suit Company in Clayton. You'll love their overcoats, their suits, everything they've got. And then if you're thinking about getting married, or you're getting married, or you know somebody that's getting married, they're the best when it comes to wedding attire. That is the St. Louis Suit Company in Clayton for 30 years. They're the best. Okay, now Telena's is in Creve Coeur, and I did have Mitty on the phone here a minute ago, but he didn't want to go on the air, and he'll explain to me why, and I'll get him on the air, though. I was thinking about it today because, you know, with what's going on in Iran, Mehdi has been here since 1979, and for 40 years, he has been running Telena's. It's his baby. He certainly can cook the great food at Telena's. It's the best Italian I've had anywhere. I love Italian food. I really do. And I love the spaghetti and meatballs at Telena's. I promise you, they're absolutely the 100% best. So if you go down to 141 and Olive, there's a shopping center there. And right in the middle of it all, there's Telena's. And you'll love their food. You really will, I promise. Great food, great spaghetti and meatballs, but also wonderful Caesar salad and everything else you can imagine. If you want an Italian dinner, go to Telena's. Okay. So, again, I want to remind you that women are not collectively owned public property in America, although I'm sure that a lot of Donald's people would love for that to be true. I think they dream about it daily. Donald said yesterday that women love him. He's known that his entire life. And he just doesn't understand when people say the opposite, because he knows that they do. He knows it. And I mentioned already before how creepy it is for him to even say those things, because quite honestly, he's been accused of rape by, I say 19 women. Some people say 26. Let's say 19. It's all too many, since we already know he's raped one. 100% for sure. Because as you know, in America, you are innocent until proven guilty. But in this case, he has now been proven guilty. Because if the jury says you're guilty, you are guilty. Now, he's going to pay $90 million because he can't keep his mouth closed, and he keeps mouthing off about a woman who he raped. Shouldn't do that, Donald. Do it again. They'll sue you again. Next time it'll be $500 million, like you owe the state of New York. And here we go into this debate tonight. And I cannot wait to hear how J.D. Vance plans to defend his partner. And by the way, remember what J.D. Vance said about his partner. This is what he said, that Donald Trump is the American Hitler. That's what he said. I mean, there's no question he said it. He probably had a reason. I remember when he said it, and I have to say that at that point, I was not promoting this story. But yeah, he's Hitler, okay? First of all, he uses Hitler's language, talking about poisoning the blood of America, talking about migrants being vermin, and talking about having to deport people, put them in camps if necessary. I mean, this guy has got every Hitler-esque story that you can imagine. And on top of it, listen to what he says, that when it's all over, he will have provided us the unified Reich. Really? I guess he read that one night when he was going to sleep and he was in the middle of reading Mein Kampf, which he does read and which he keeps at his bedside, according to his wife, ex-wife. Some people said that ex-wife was out to get him, but I don't know. Maybe she is, although she did say that she wanted to work for him. I guess maybe she likes Hitler. Might be. But at any rate, we know he's Hitler. We know that everything he's talking about is Hitler. We know that all this business that he attacks immigrants and attacks people from other cultures, we know that's all Hitler. And listen, when it was all through, we'll be able to say this, that before he was done, Donald managed to get to the same place that every racist, misogynist, homophobe has ever ended up in their lifetime, and that is blaming the Jews. As you well know, probably by now, he was explaining to a Jewish group that, first of all, if you vote for Kamala, you hate Israel and you hate Jews. Okay. And then he explained that if you do that, that ultimately you'll be to blame for him losing the election. It'll be the Jews' fault. So, yeah, good going, Donald. I mean, it took a while, and you went after every group you could possibly find. But then before you got destroyed in this election, you did what everybody always does. I mean, it's the go-to explanation whenever you don't know what else to say. The Jews did it. So, yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's good work. No, I'm glad he got there, because I hated the idea that he tried to claim that he was the Jews' best friend. I mean, that was terrible. He was saying that for a while. But no, he's off that now. Now the Jews are making him into the victim. Well, you know what he says? He's going to punish every group, every person, anybody that has come after him during this election. And that includes, he says, anybody who has come after him in the past as well. He's going to lump them all together. He's going to prosecute them. And then I'm afraid to even think what he would do if he actually could. Now, that's the good news, that he can't. He's not going to do anything. We're going to get to this election, and the only thing he's going to have to say is he's going to go to his 90 locations or whatever it is by then, and he's going to say, okay, guys, get me in here. I lost, but make me the winner. And I remind you, too, of something I mentioned the other day. There's a great book that you can read about Trump, speaking of him being a winner. And the name of the book is The Lucky Loser. Of course, referring to the fact that Trump always loses, but that he has had just enough luck to hold on and find another way to come back and steal from people. Now, he's been good at that. He's been an expert in that area. And speaking of all of that, speaking of stealing, in order to run for office, you got to raise some money. And that is an interesting situation in itself, because at the moment, the money raising has been so lopsided in favor of Kamala that it's not even close. I mean, it's double. Kamala is double Donald Trump, and Donald doesn't have any money left of what he did raise, and Kamala has got millions from what she raised. And in fact, she's beating every kind of record that anybody has ever come across. And I have to tell you that I am really heartened by these exceptional money-raising numbers, not because the money will get her elected, but because the money represents people donating to this campaign. And that's the point. People are so anxious to do anything to help Kamala Harris. That's who. It's not Donald. Donald wishes it were him. He dreams that it's him, but it's not. It's all money going to Kamala. Thousands and thousands of people handing their $10, $15, $20 all to Kamala. And these aren't people who are eating dog food and desperate. These are people who are regular citizens who are just wanting to do something to participate against Donald Trump. And that's the point. These are all voters. Wait till you see these numbers. You're not going to believe it. I know you're not, because you're being told all the time, including by Kamala, that it's a close race and it's going to be close. But the reason for saying that is obvious. No one wants the public to go to sleep on this. You got to go to work. You got to vote. You got to fight. You know why? Kamala says, when we fight, you know what she says. Yeah, we win. And look, again, this perfect pitch, this perfect political pitch that she has. When we fight, we win. We're not going back. She's awfully smart. She's done an awfully good job. She has captured the hearts of so many people in this country that, everybody that's on the other side on earth too can say, oh, we're going to do great. But you know what? It's just like baseball. You can talk before spring training how great you are. And then when you get to the game, hey, you better have some players. And I can tell you right now, Donald hasn't got them. But let me say this about baseball before I jump out of here. Pete Rose died. And I have to say that, Pete Rose was a great baseball player. More hits than Ty Cobb, a 3.0 something, 302 batting average lifetime. The guy was just an incredible baseball player. He was a stupid, mean, ugly person. Yes, he was. So was Ty Cobb, for that matter. But look, he belongs in the Hall of Fame because he's a Hall of Famer, and I really am sorry that they didn't put him in when he was alive, because I think he deserved to see it. I'm not all that upset about the gambling part. It's wrong. He shouldn't have done it. He's just not a good guy. But he's a hell of a baseball player. That's for sure. He was. So that's the story tonight. Remember Wenty's. Remember Jules on Hampton. Remember the St. Louis Suit Company and Telena's. And I'm Mark Kaysen. This is Showdown. Good night.